we wanted to do a valedictory session with a bit of a difference. And we said no better way to close this whole 2-day session on building a better India, inclusive, responsible, and ahead, than asking the people who have actually, who have been great CEOs, and coincidentally, I think all of them have been past presidents of CII. So we're going to get an interesting perspective. It'll be rapid fire, it'll be quick, and everyone has promised to give what? 1-sentence answers of what I ask you. And yeah, 1-sentence answers. This is for everyone. And so just so that we can have some time. No, 1 sentence. And this is so that we can have some time, because the gentlemen here in the audience are dying to ask you all questions. So in usual CII style, next to each one of you, they gave me questions. And you know how they always give you those laddu easy questions that they know that you're very comfortable. That's your comfort zone. They've done it to me many times, to secretaries with this. But so I'm going to move out of that comfort zone and ask you some tough stuff. And after that, as usual, we'll allow CB to have the last word and calm the waters after what happens.
You have the right to ask, you have the right to answer.
You don't have to take the Fifth Amendment at this point. But Rahul, real rapid fire. What part of India's current development gives you most joy? What part of India's current development gives you most joy? Most joy. Now, three things that are giving you the most joy of what's going on now.
All the political developments. The fact that the Karnataka and Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh election will follow up, and then the mother of all elections. Very excited. Want to know what will happen. Okay. On that will depend a lot of economics. She's at three questions.
Okay.
On that will depend on economics, because the parties say no populism, but everything they are doing is to get votes.
Very good. Dhruv, what was your most frustrating engagement as CII president?
A good question. My most frustrating was moving CEI into CII, because we had a lot of our membership which said that we want to stick to engineering and we don't want to broaden the membership. And Tarun and I had to convince everybody that we really needed to be the Confederation of Indian Industry if we wanted to be a global player.
Very interesting. Sumit, you spoke all this thing about being well-dressed. Does this widening Gini coefficient in India worry you? Is that something to worry about?
No, I think it's something very good. What coefficient?
Okay, don't leave it like that. Don't leave us hanging. you get 2 more sentences.
Oh. What is the question?
So the widening Gini coefficient, does it worry you? The difference between, that everybody says that the rich are getting richer and the poor are just not making it, and this widening chasm will actually create tension in India as we go forward. So
I got the question wrong. Sorry about the answer. No, it is definitely a concern, because we talk about inclusive growth, and that's very important for India. So it is a matter of concern.
Can we do anything about it? What does industry do about it? Because that's the messaging we have to give when we talk about an inclusive India. Are we giving the right messaging?
I believe we are. Steps like compulsory CSR, but most of us were doing CSR before it became compulsory. So there is a realization amongst many of the industrialists that we want our future customers to be prosperous, to continue to be our customers. So we do need inclusive growth from even a very selfish point of view.
Does anyone else have anything to add to this? Hi, Sunil. Come. Anyone wants to add to this widening Gini coefficient? Is there something that
Yeah, I think the worst part of it is employment. So when you're having a widening gap and you're not able to provide jobs, then the differential is much more poignant. So I think the two things go together, and that's what's really worrying.
So, I want to add to that, the divisiveness is increasing. And even things like North-South divide, caste system, rich and poor, jobless growth, every one of them is definitely causing unhappiness, divisiveness in society, and the social media, fake news, amplify these things because we are all getting influenced by what we get on our mobile phones. We have, our attention span is 2 minutes, 1 minute sometimes, and we believe what we read, and then we get influenced. I think this is very, very dangerous.
Sunil, you heard what was going on about the Gini coefficient, and what Chris said is that all this widening thing and joblessness, is it our fault? Is industry doing enough?
So if you see at the World Economic Forum, I think 4 of the last 7 years, one of the top themes has been disparity. Increasingly, disparity has become a subject that's talked about around the world because the market economy model that got developed a couple of 100 years ago has worked exceedingly well in the last 50 years. It grew all of the economies, but it grew the top of the economy quicker and faster in every single country. So the impact that we're seeing right now is a accumulation of what has actually happened at least over the last 10, 12 or 14 years. You've seen this change take place in 2 or 3 different big waves. First, you saw this big pushback against governments, prime ministers, kings, that they are evil, they don't really look after people. Second became, I'm actually broadening the answer.
But you know that you weren't there when I said everybody gets only 1 sentence.
Oh, okay.
So we let you do 3.
All right. So I shall then stop here just to say that disparity is and should be a big concern. Are we doing enough? I don't think so.
That's an important one. But Adi, I do know that you have a great rural company. So I want to ask you, we've been talking, they're going to spend 14.3 trillion rupees in the agri sector. Is that too much? Will it move the needle? No, that's to Adi.
I think the rural sector not only needs a tremendous amount of investment, but it can pay very good dividends if we use it wisely. There is a lot of opportunities to get our agri growth higher by paying the right attention. For example, help farmers do animal husbandry on top of their farming activity. That would add tremendously to their incomes, tremendously to GDP growth, and tremendously to rural prosperity.
So if Yogi was here, I would have asked which he preferred, his cigarette business or his agri business. He's not. So I'm going to ask you, in terms of you think real estate is your future? I'll just get, I want you to answer that too, but in your businesses, real estate or your agri or FMCG?
Well, I think all 3 of them have great potential.
Unfair. So you don't differentiate between your kids. Then I have to ask Rahul that question later. But right now, okay, Rahul, services or manufacturing?
Sorry, what about services and manufacturing?
Which do you prefer? You prefer making motorcycles or selling insurance?
I worked all my life in manufacturing, and that's why now I prefer financial services. And I separated both of them about in 2008. And since 2008, Bajaj Auto is only motorcycle three-wheeler manufacturing, which my elder son Rajiv is the CEO, managing director and CEO, and I'm Naam Ke Vaste chairman. And I hold the shares, but who cares? And all the financial services companies, Sanjeev is the big boss, and again, I'm only the non-executive chairman. So the reason I now prefer the financial services is because till 4 years ago, Bajaj Auto was the jewel of the group and this and that, and now the Bajaj Finance and Bajaj Fin Services have become the jewel of the group, at least in terms of profits and market cap.
Dhruv, let's go. You wanted to get the
I wanted
agri
to talk on
question.
the agri. As you know, we're quite heavily in the sugar, and we deal with about 250,000 farmers. In just 1 year, the income of the 40 million farmer families in India has gone up by 50% in 1 year. And that's because of new seeds and, of course, the rainfall. But so we are not doing enough in R&D in the agricultural sector, and this is we were not going to get double the farmer income with just infrastructure. There's a lot of technology that needs to be put here in a little long-term basis, and the problem is there is no incentive for private sector to participate, and the government doing it alone is not going to really carry the day.
Yeah, we've really
By the way,
been
we do
pushing
need
it.
to build the non-agri income as well in the rural economy. To the point that Adi made,
Absolutely.
on the one hand, if you don't, then it's a massive, massive liability. But if you can actually fix it, you have the largest growth market in the world, literally.
Very interesting. And actually, that's what Amitabh Kant said also, that we have to push our human development index. We'll never move growth. But you know, when I was Sumit's vice president, I asked him, how do you keep so cool all the time? And he said, you know, I always look at an action or something that I'm going to say and how I'm going, you know, 1 year from now, whether that would really have affected me. And if it doesn't, then I just let it go. So, you know, that's so forward thinking. So the question really that I want to ask you is, what bothered you? I mean, what was the one thing when you were president that you felt, that you really regretted not doing?
You know, with the secretariat, what it is, I don't think I can recount one thing that I regret not having done, because they made sure you did everything you should do. And there is actually, as you found out for yourself, there is a great satisfaction in that. So I really have no regrets. I thought it was great fun, enjoyed it. Would I do it again? No. Would I do it again? No.
Yeah, that's true. So don't ask past presidents that question, whether they do it again, except Rahul Bajaj. He did it again third time, no? Yeah,
What's the question?
they say third time's a charm. But having said that, I think we'll move on. Chris,
He'll say no to?
Becoming president again.
tell me, which state do you have the most
He would have
faith
made
in?
a fool of himself for the first time. If I say yes, I would make a fool of myself for the second time. So, but you know, I don't mind. If CII and its 7,000 members want that,
Members.
I've always been at CIS service, but you know, my good friend Rakesh Mittal kya karega?
No. I think that, Chris, tell us about states. You know, you've engaged, we've engaged a lot with CI, really works with the states. Which state do you have the most faith in today and why?
See, every
Please say
state,
Tamil Nadu.
no, every state has its positives and negatives, and that's how I see it. And I typically look at the positives and try to work with them. The negatives, sometimes you are able to influence, sometimes you are not able to. So just like Sumit said, forget about it. Just work with the positives and that's it. And enjoy working with them.
Can we afford to do that? Can we really afford not to engage with the tough ones? And,
Yeah, but
and I
so-
know that CB is definitely shaking his head. He doesn't let it go.
No, we shouldn't let it go. We try and work with them, engage with them. But when you engage with them where there is reciprocity, where there is, there is a willingness to work with you. If they're not willing to work with you, well, you try, sometimes you give up.
So-
Because you have 1 year, right, to work with them
Right.
as a president.
Adi, in terms of this whole thing that all these, that people promise us, we're going to roll out the red carpet, is that really what Indian business needs? Just a red carpet, that we want a free road with no risk?
Well, certainly, it's not just the red carpet, but it's very important that states and the country helps business. And I think one of the best things, you were asking an earlier question on states, I think one of the best things that has happened in India is the states are getting competitive with each other. And I think in due course, that will help business establish itself much better.
Can I answer that also?
Of course.
With your permission, madam.
Of course.
No, I think the point is that Indian industry is growing and will do better and better this year, I think, the way things are moving. But as I mentioned elsewhere, because I think the elections are coming, and the government wants to show it's doing something good, which is understandable. It's a democracy, we have to win elections. But they want to show they are against corruption, they want to catch black money. And I think, ask a lot of people here. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of worries, I'm told. Somehow the other, they don't like me, so nobody comes to me and nobody tells me anything. But others come and tell me they are all worried. They'll get raided, the ITO will ask this, so-and-so will happen this, Companies Act will happen this. And my strong view is, catch hold the corrupt and the fraudster, and by due process of law, put him to jail if the law says that. But the rest are, for every one crook, I don't want to name them, we all know the name, there are 10, 50, 100 honest businessmen. That ratio is much worse for politicians. The more crooks there than we are. So why are you having this fear psychosis? I feel there's a fear psychosis, and I don't want to name the minister, cabinet minister, who agreed with me on that point. He said, I've heard the same. So this causes worry. And it's not correct, it's not good. I think at the level of the Prime Minister, he should give an assurance that we have not told this to our income tax people,
No,
to raise revenue and this and that. That's what I keep hearing from a lot of people.
And Rahul, a lot of this theme was for us to call out to industry to say that if we expect less regulation, we have to follow the law letter and spirit. We can't afford to have scams for 2 days. I think that's a strong message that has gone across. I'm glad you brought it up. But then I worry also something about the states.
See, CII is 7,000 members. And we have talked a lot in National Council and President's Council. In the last 5, 7, 10, 15 years, have we, subject to law, there are many complications, have we taken action against a single of those 7,000 members, including myself, for committing any mistake or, not mistake, crime? I mean, none of us in the last 5, 10 years have committed a crime? No, that's not our job. We are not. Okay, when somebody gets convicted, or at least something happens to him, the government is legitimately after him, we don't take any action and we say we are a great industry association. The others may be, I'm sorry to say, much worse. That's no consolation. We have to show our integrity, the fact that we believe in ethical dealings, and if we believe in ethical dealings, that means we should have ethical members.
So, and Rahul, to your point, I think that what we've been advocating as CII for some time now is that all of us sign into that code of conduct. And that will help us self-regulate, because this whole thing, when we don't like the government coming down with a heavy hand on us and telling us you're right, you're wrong, I don't think that as CII we're a collective body. So we do want people to take up this thing voluntarily. And I think that's something that all of us can take back, that there is a code of conduct for CII. and more companies should voluntarily get into it. And then after that, it'll become a norm that across the board, I'm sure that if even 70% of us sign on to it, all the 30 will get on, and then it'll become part of CII governance. Let's not make
But the
this...
reputation of the business community has gone down, is going down.
So let's make
And
this...
we are, what
we'll
is
make
CII doing about it?
conversation different.
And none of us has the guts,
But
politely also.
But,
We
but,
don't want
but I
to
don't
fight.
want to
Say
get lost
something
in
against
that.
the government. None of us has the guts.
Rahul,
here.
let's not
Nobody.
get lost in that. Let's not get lost in that.
Included.
Shobna, I'm going to take this opportunity and tell you we've come out with a code of conduct in the committee that I chair. Out of 7,000 members in 2 years, only 400 have signed up.
That's the sad part.
And we keep sending reminders, and this is sort of an opportunity to tell everybody that. Thanks, because it's the sad part.
So we'll pull it back and not keep on, take it away from us as members, and let's go and bash up some states. So who are the guys that, this prolificate spending is not good. The way states are spending now, till such time the states were the stars in India's fiscal discipline. But now we're seeing that, things are getting off track, especially with regard to the loan waivers for farmers. So how do you look at it, Sunil? Is this the way that India can go forward if the states are not playing?
So I think two things are happening at the same time. On the one hand, because the states are getting extremely competitive with each other, they are trying to become more attractive as destinations. At the same time, politics in India has become much, much more adversarial. It's also become much more personal now. So the tendency of leadership in different states to do things which he or she likes or wants to demonstrate as a personal passion has become much more prevalent today, which is where a lot of this money is actually getting spent. Now, the loan waivers to the farms is again a phenomenon of what you said earlier. It is to satisfy or to convince the voter that we are with you. We are not just supporting the key players in the economy or the wealthy or large industry. We are a people's government. Now, this almost appears in many cases to have become a political compulsion. It actually started off as a race. One state did this, and the second, and the third, and they started questioning, when are the others going to do it? So it's not just a race to get better. In some cases, also a race to the bottom. So both things are happening at the same time.
That's true. Dhruv, I'm going to give you a real...
Can I just finish
Sure,
that?
but after that I have a really easy question.
Fine, just quick. If you ask a lot of farmers, and we deal with many of them, they said, we have not really wanted a waiver. We wanted an honest price for our product, and our costs are going up every year. So we are not able to make ends meet. They don't want free electricity. They don't want a freebie. Number of them, actually. So I think we do a little disservice by thinking that they are wanting all this as a SOP. Because they're not getting a right price. They have so many intermediaries. So their farm price is so low and their costs are so high, they feel the best option is at least to get free money.
So
Also,
doubling farmers' income is a myth?
Sorry?
Doubling farmers' income.
No, I don't see it as a myth. I say it should be the vision. The vision is a very good vision. The route to the farmer's income is to make them more productive, to help them in technology, and help them in infrastructure, and in the market mechanism, and in diversifying their income base. So the route haven't been done. And by the way, the farmers don't have a body. Industry has CII. The farmers have no body. They have nobody to represent them.
I met somebody.
And agriculture is more regulated than industry was at its worst time. It's an extremely regulated activity. It needs to be relaxed. You need to allow them to be more entrepreneurial. They live a very, very tough life.
Rakesh actually said that we need to spend a lot more time in the villages to actually understand and see people. So yes, it's a tough life, but I think that their happiness quotient is a little different from ours. But moving on, Adi, when we talk about jobs, and we say this whole thing about 600 million jobs, all the youngest population in the world. Are we smoking dope?
No, I think we had a discussion earlier also that with IT growing tremendously, with automation growing tremendously, are we in a problem as far as jobs are concerned? To my mind, the only solution for jobs, and it has always worked, is high GDP growth. Whenever we have had high GDP growth, all the sectors of the economy employ a lot more people, and that works very well. We should concentrate on that and do everything possible to see that we move in that direction. And this is the best time for India to change the direction.
See, we need to realize that we're grappling with two different problems. One is an agriculture economy moving and fast forwarding into a services economy, and second, a economy that's actually in the industrial era moving into a knowledge era. So agriculture era to knowledge era, industrial era to knowledge era. 50% of the population is actually agriculture based, and it's in the agriculture era. And they don't have the skill set necessary. That's very, large population which needs to now find jobs. So we're grappling with two different problems simultaneously. I think there is probably no other country in the world which is grappling with these two problems. In the US also, there is disparity growing. There is
In one word.
issue of jobless growth.
I have this
But
closing.
they are better off because they're going from the industrial era to the knowledge era. We are probably the only country which is grappling with two different problems.
You had a
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I think we have to be very careful when we keep talking only about jobs. We have to talk about economic opportunities, not just jobs, which is why entrepreneurship becomes extremely critical for a country like India, because you're also going to lose jobs. Because of technology, because of automation, because of chatbots, because of robots, we are going to lose jobs because of higher yields on agriculture. So the needs for us is to not just provide those jobs, it also is the full circle of retraining, new skills, and more importantly, every time you create an entrepreneur, every time you create a job, you create one job. Every time you help facilitate an entrepreneur, he or she creates 1, 5, 10, or 5,000 jobs. So I think there is essentially a need today for India to figure out where the multipliers lie. And also when we look at sectors to promote, the sectors with the highest multipliers are well known, whether it's automotive, or it's healthcare, or it's home construction. Those areas, or it's textiles, have to have higher promotion. We have to be selective in how we do this. Every country in the world, when they needed high growth, actually did. Nobody could do the entire economy at one time. They actually focus on the areas, pick 4 or 5 sectors where we can become world leaders, pick 4 or 5 where we can become sectoral leaders in the country, pick 4 or 5 which are lagging behind and we need support. And I think that's what we need to do. Our resources are limited.
So, this is the thing. CII presidents really are exposed to such a wide variety of subjects and knowledge, and this is something that we gain, and I know that many of you in the audience gets it on so many subjects, but and you're experts definitely in your own fields, but here you're exposed to a variety of new ideas and things that come. So the last one will go to the man who knows too much, the Director General of CII. If any of you had any doubts, lots of all the knowledge, there's a repository out there. And so CB, the last question that I have, then I'll move it into the audience who can also ask me if they want, because I'll be sitting down at that time. To finish it off, we're talking about an India at 75, 2022, 5 years from now. Where do you see us? You know all the problems that we discussed. So what is it that we're going to move to?
Thank you. One theme which came across while you were moderating, and one thing which keeps us awake at night is really the issue of image of industry. And I think today we need to be seen as an industry, not only as an industry institution, industry body, but what's happening is the image with the government, the image with the polity, the image with the civil society, image of the industry, with all stakeholders, need probably to go through a huge change in the few years that you said that you, till 2022 India at 75. And we should not be seen, industry should not be termed as it is profiteering, but actually creating wealth for the country. And it's creating livelihood for the country. And I think that's going to be a very, very important work that we should be all, working towards. Second, in that area, if you see the huge role of the entire credibility, and I think Mr. Bajaj, you referred to the credibility of an institution like CII. The institution of the credibility of CII would depend on the image of industry. If the image of industry is going through a low, there is a lot that we need to probably look at in correcting it, or in our communication or in our deeds. Simple issue, Madam President, is, say for instance, governance. Our own membership, say the small industry, we have many codes which talk about whether our members comply to a delayed payment code, say for instance. Today, when our large companies are signing up for a delayed payment code and they are not paying, our small industry can't go against the large industry or take them to court. They believe that because you have signed up to the code, you are going to comply to the code, and if you do not comply to the code, they have no powers to do. And an industry institution as also is not doing, and the same point was alluded to by some of our past presidents over here. So it's a lot of self-regulation which we need to perhaps project to our own 9,000 members that we have. And therefore, it's not industry, but also industry showing compassion for beyond. Say for instance, the rural was talked about, districts was talked about, and several other stakeholders were talked about, the civil society. We need to perhaps do much more of connect to show, and not just only recommend to the government as to you need to do 10 things, but yes, here industry we are doing 10 things, and we are doing it so very effectively. So both in deed and in communication, I think we need to really go into the fifth gear for the next 5 years.
I open it up. And any questions that anybody wants to ask, I think we have 5 more minutes. Srikanth, go ahead.
Societies grow with trust. And over time, there is a growing deficit of trust between society and the government, and the industry and the government. And I think this is something which is a great concern, which has come out in one way or the other. CB has mentioned it, Rahulji has mentioned it, and others. As a prime organization like CII, which has the best of the people of industry, coveted, respected, what should CII do as an institution to bridge this deficit with the government? And that, I feel, is the most important thing for any growth to take place.
Yeah, go ahead, add to it, and then we'll all we'll have a go at it for one-liner.
The point which is boiling in our minds is that what face we have in front of, when we go in our cars, what the driver would be thinking about us, what the servants would be thinking about us, the kind of scandals coming out every day, it is really, and people who are not into a small or medium scale or upper medium, they are also feeling, sometimes they were, what would I say, depressed that what we have done, we should have taken loans of 10,000 crores and above. And people who have taken loans of that amount, they got scot-free. So there is a total kind of disconnect. People who are really working hard, people who are honest, paying taxes and, doing things in the way it should have been done, and the kind of the upper level, none of them sitting here. But that is it, total different India incorporated, and we need to talk about it. And I think the point what Rahulji and Chandrajit, everybody has mentioned, that is what I think is the need of the day, that how the image of the industry, which is really taking a serious beat, we need to do something about it.
Sanjay, don't beat us up that much. Look at the farmers. Do they ever expect that they have to pay back a loan with us? We don't have a culture, I think, at both ends. And there are many people that are at fault for this. But it's a big statement that you're making, and that's exactly what CB was talking about, that there's a trust deficit. But it's not everybody that needs to get painted with that brush. And more than anything, whatever what we've been interacting is society, and so it might be the flavor of the day at this time to say that, that there's some Modis who are not very popular, and also that some banks that are under fire. But at the end of the day, they do think that there's a great value in some of the institutions that the people around this room have built. Let's not forget that. And I think that we have to really be proud of the fact that, the amount of GDP, how many jobs you create, and that's this. Go back into your companies and make sure that they feel so good about what you're doing, that the jobs that you're providing. And I think that this whole thing, I don't want to leave you with this negative message. I want to leave you with the power of what you've done and created, each one of us. This is celebratory, that we have created Indian industry. You've come together to form CII. Like I spoke in the morning, the market cap of our companies is 60%. And I think 99.9% of us really understand the code of ethics and what we need to do better. Let's just go out there and celebrate ourselves a bit more. We're beating ourselves up a bit too much.
Okay.
I want to end this positively.
I think we are living in very difficult times. What is the reputation of the media? What is the reputation of the judiciary? What is the reputation of the politicians? If you look around, I don't see anybody having reputation. However, as industry, it's maybe very difficult to have each one of the 7,000 perform. But those of us sitting here, if they can take a vow that I shall be an island of excellence and work at it, I think a lot will happen. And I think this is a very important. My second point, I'm very concerned about the political narrative of the country today. The entire narrative has become a narrative of a fight between the rich and the poor. So you have a Soot Boot Ki Sarkar accusation, and you have farmer loans being written off. In the middle is the industry looking for solutions to problems, or policies and processes which will make industry to grow, create jobs, create economic wealth. And it's all getting affected by Soot Boot Ki Sarkar accusations. Now that is my serious concern as a political narrative. That if the government does anything for the industry, the question is, they've been bought over by the industries.
So,
this is a serious concern, and I don't know how we would address it.
I take what you say, and I know that we've got lots of this narrative that everybody has been feeling this trust deficit. So, and I don't want to take anything away from it. I think it's really important. But shall we do something that I learned from a congressman, a US congressman? He said that, actually they all love to hate Russia. And everyone in the US is only after Russia, and they don't realize that it's China who's picking their pocket with this. So the whole art of distraction. So let me go to Rumjum over there and distract you all by talking about parity. Ask us a question on parity, and let's distract this audience from a trust deficit.
I can't hear a word.
What parity, whose parity are we talking about? I think that's the starting point, and I'm so very happy that you, Shobna, have actually taken this initiative last year to get us thinking about it, and I hope that we will make a small move at least going forward.
I think it's important to remember, it's a good point you're making, Rumjum. It's important to remember that's the smarter half of our population, by the way. They're smart enough to let the men now and then feel they're actually smarter. So it's only sensible that they are encouraged to be in the economic mainstream too, as they are in many other places. So certainly it's an important aspect. But overall, I think we do need to remember, Shobna, that we are actually doing very well as a country and an economy. When you compare worldwide, we are a bright spot in the entire world right now. And the amount of work that is being done at this moment in India, in infrastructure, in industry, and I'm saying besides the cribs and the problems and the challenges we have, in 10 years' time, you will not recognize this country, and I mean in a good way. The way we are building our airports, our rail connectivity, our waterways, our highways, new industry, new initiatives, startups. There are just so many fantastic things happening overall in India at this moment that it is important for us to focus on the negatives, but not only on the negatives. That's all I'm saying. This should be a balanced discussion because there is just such amazing stuff going on that in the balance we will be better off, but if you can address those, we'll just be better off.
Before you finish, President, I thought I must compliment you for this session. I think it's always good to have these sort of sessions. We are not going to get answers, but at least since we are thinking, it sets all of us moving in a direction. I think well done. I think it's a great session. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all. That's the end of this session. Mukundan, thank you for that, Mukundan. We'll take that as the vote of thanks and the closing remarks also. So with all your permission, we'll close this and move on. It's been a wonderful 2 days, and I hope that you will remember that whenever you feel the need to reconnect to what India is, go and visit the Jaipur column that tells you that believe in India. Thank you.